Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Hey everybody, welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I am very pleased to have my next guest here. He is Mark Erickson, the president of Northampton Community College. He's Mr. NCC, as I like to call you, Mark. Did you know I walked around town?
Oh, I love that. That's good.
It's true.
I'll take it.
It's true. And even though you have that name, you are not from the Lehigh Valley. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
Well, gosh, you know, where I grew up is one of the toughest questions ever because my dad was in the Air Force. So, I mean, literally, we moved all over. I was born in England, lived a little bit on the East Coast, then I was in the South, then I was in the Midwest. Moved back to England for my middle school years, kind of
Wow,
6th,
really?
7th, 8th grade. Right.
Interesting.
Which
Now,
was cool.
how is it moving around like that? Is it something you just get used to? You don't really know any different, I suppose.
Right. Well, I think that part's very true. I mean, every 2 to 3 years you moved, and you kind of got used to that. I mean, you were in communities where a lot of people were like you, a lot of other Air Force kids. So that helped.
What was England in middle school like? Middle school's hard no matter where you are, I suppose. But what was England like?
I thought it was terrific.
It was great.
Yeah, we lived about 40 minutes outside of London, and, you know, this is a long, long time ago. And my parents would literally allow my older brother, a year older than I, to go into London on our own. And, you know, England was pretty interesting.
I was saying to a friend that we had met some friends abroad who had children my children's ages, and at 13 or 14 they were taking trains to other cities. Right. And here we're afraid to let them walk down the block. So it really is an interesting difference in the way kids are raised, and that's still true today in Europe from what I've seen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the world's a little bit different
For
today
sure.
than when I was 13, 14. But culturally, it was fabulous. I mean, we went, you know, we would travel all over Europe. We had a minivan that my dad and mom would pack all the 3 boys into, and we'd travel all around Europe. So at an early age, it opened my eyes to the broader world, and I think that's kind of carried forward.
That's so cool.
My own interests. I mean, I do a lot of international travel now. And in fact, I just came back from a conference. I'm the past board chair of a group called Community Colleges for International Development. So I think it's hugely important.
What do you think you learned from those early years when you were living abroad and traveling around, and then you got back to the States? Were you able to think back and say, that experience gave me X?
Well, there are kind of 2 things I would say. Being in a military family and moving all the time, first of all, you learn that you just had to put yourself out there because you were always the new kid. I mean, literally. And if you didn't jump in and get involved, you were going to be left behind. So I actually think that helped me in life to kind of jump right in and not be afraid or hold back. And I also got very involved in sports because that was an easy way to do all those things. In terms of the broader lesson,
that's a pretty good lesson, though.
Yeah, that lesson, well, in living in England, the pace of life was slower. It was more deliberate, more personal than when we came back to the U.S. I remember being struck by all the billboards and the fast traffic.
And where did you spend your high school years?
High school years right outside of Washington, D.C., which once again, somewhat unique experience there that I think was very formative in shaping who I am. I was in high school at the time when busing was kind of what was going on. You know, communities that had been all black or all white were becoming integrated through a busing system. So I actually went to a high school that was half black and half white. This is in 1969 to 1973, kind of the height of the civil rights movement. So a lot of...
Interesting time to be in the D.C. area, too, I would imagine.
Hugely interesting. I mean, my principal... About half my teachers were African American, which I think, you know, for a young white man in the late 60s, early 70s, was wonderfully eye-opening and really has shaped a lot of my own commitment to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And part of what kind of I brought into my college years and in my post-college years, where I've done a lot of work around those issues.
You mentioned sports and being interested in sports. Tell me a little bit about that, about athletics, and what sports did you play, and what role did they play in your life?
Well, the main 2 sports were football and track. And I played a little bit of basketball, but I wasn't that good at basketball. But football, I think, in terms of learning, A, being tough, B, being on a team, I think all that was good. And then track, which is probably where I was the best. I excelled in track, actually ran track in college. It was a lot about self-discipline and how you become better and how you compete and some of the mindset parts of competing in athletics, because you can be fast, but if you get too nervous or, whatever, as you get into your race, it can...
Or if you can't keep pace or recover from an injury.
Right, and I was a sprinter, so... Whoosh,
that was it. You were fast. Now, do you think you could still take some people in a race today?
Oh, sure.
Okay. I like it. So I feel like there could be some sort of, maybe athletic competition among some of the deans and the presidents of the colleges.
Yeah, I'm not going out to race a 100-yard dash against Brian Grigsby or anybody.
Oh, that would be a good, wow, that'd be one for the books.
We did Dancing with the Stars.
Yes,
that was good enough. That was good enough. So.
Yes, and you guys did a great job with that. That was great. That was a lot of fun.
Fun.
All right, so I know that academics were important to you and you were a good student. Was that always the case, or was there a turning point where academics started to matter?
Well, I grew up in a household where my parents put a premium on education. They pushed us and also told us you can be anything you want to be. I think I'm incredibly fortunate to have grown up with two parents who pushed me hard and said, dream big. You can do what you want to do. But they were always there pushing us to make sure our grades were good and we were, and actually I think being in athletics helped with that, because it meant you had to really manage your time, because you didn't have as much time as a lot of other students.
Yeah, and what did you decide? When you went, tell me a little bit about college. Where'd you go? What'd you study? And did you know your career path?
Absolutely. I did not know my career path. I ended up going to Princeton as an undergraduate. They actually recruited me in track, so that's what kind of opened my eyes.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then I visited and was very much taken by the place.
How can you not be, right? It's just one of the most iconic campuses in America. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It was
and did you run track the whole time?
I did while I was there. Although I must admit I didn't throw myself into college track the way I did high school track. But, most of my Princeton time was really all about pushing my own boundaries, learning more, exposing myself to things that I hadn't been exposed to. I was very much a public school kid who, I'd done very well in high school, but quite frankly, I was not all that prepared to be at Princeton. And there were a lot of private school kids who,
They were really ready for those quick big papers and yeah.
Oh, my first semester was incredibly tough. I didn't do particularly well. I remember going home. My parents then lived in Nebraska, and my dad looked at my grades and he says, "Do you think you should go back?" And I said, "Absolutely, I will get this down." So,
you were committed.
My last semester there, I had a 4.0. My first semester, I had a 2.5. So,
wow,
so
great progress.
There was a lot of growth. But I learned how to study and I learned how to get the most out of myself, and was blessed with some unbelievable mentors. One particular person when I was at Princeton who really changed my life, I would say.
Amazing how one person can have such an incredible influence.
No question.
Yeah. And then what was next for you? What did you decide after Princeton? Was there a job? Was there more education?
This particular individual, he was an assistant dean of students, really had shifted what I thought I wanted to do with my future. At some point along the way, I decided I wanted to become a lawyer because that was a pretty acceptable answer to say you're going to become a lawyer. And I actually visited and spent, several days with a lawyer trying to follow them, and I was frankly bored to death. I'm nothing negative about lawyers.
Just wasn't for you.
It wasn't for me. This man who was this huge mentor for me was a college administrator who changed my life, changed a lot of different people's lives, and I thought, gosh, I want to do what he does, right?
So
that was
cool.
the path that I started down, knowing that I needed to get a graduate degree to do that. And I wasn't really ready to do that immediately. Your senior year at Princeton, you have to write this 200-page thesis. It's a crazy, daunting experience. So I was like, give me some time. I got to take some time before
Recover
I go to
from
graduate
that.
school.
Yeah.
So I went out to the West Coast, took a teaching job. I was a teacher, athletic director at a small private school in Sacramento, California, and did that. I planned to do it for a year and then go back to graduate school. I ended up doing it for 2 years because I met my now wife, Lynn.
I always wondered how you two met. Now I know.
She was a sixth grade teacher, and it was a faculty romance, and students thought it was the craziest thing that we were dating. But literally.
And you were young. You guys were pretty young. Yeah.
Crazy young. I can't even, I mean, don't ask me what happened. I mean, we started dating in October, and then we got engaged in June and married in August. Whoosh.
Wow. Wow. And then you went to grad school.
41 years later.
Oh, shout out to Lynn, your amazing wife. Yes,
Yeah,
that's great.
She's unbelievable.
Yes, and she runs the Da Vinci Science Center. We should do a shout out, plug to them, because it's a great center, and we're lucky to have you here. All right, we're going to take.
And she worked at Northampton for 10 years. I don't know if you.
I didn't know that. So, well, there you go. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then I want to hear a little bit about your career trajectory, the lessons you've learned along the way, and we'll get to NCC when we get back. You're listening to Unscripted with Russo. Hey, are you looking for a place unlike any other? Well, enjoy the twists and turns of Dorney Park, explore a new world underground at Lost River Caverns, or create colorful memories at the Crayola Experience. Whatever you decide, Discover Lehigh Valley is your source to finding out what's happening in our area. To find a new adventure, check out their website at discoverlehighvalley.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Unscripted. I am here with the president of Northampton Community College, Mark Erickson. Mark, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Ashley.
We've learned a little bit about your upbringing, how you traveled kind of all over the world growing up, Air Force dad, and education was important. You ran track at Princeton, went out and taught on the West Coast, met Lynn. Then what happened? Because now you know that you've been influenced. You kind of want to go into this higher ed track.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I had two mentors at Princeton, one major mentor, and he had gone on to graduate school actually in theology, and the other one had his master's from Harvard in education. So I actually applied and was accepted at Harvard in both the divinity and the education track. And so I started the program there, ultimately graduated with the master's in education, did a year at the divinity school, which was great, but it really was, I couldn't see the applicability as much as the education side to what I wanted to do. So and it was great living in Boston. You know, Cambridge is an exciting community, and Harvard's another fun,
and you were newly
challenging
married
place.
at this time, right?
Newly married, and my wife actually taught sixth grade at a private K through 12 school right outside of Boston.
That's really neat. Tell me a little bit about the early days. Where did your career really begin? Now you've got this education and you've taught a little bit, but what's the path that you take?
Well, I thought I wanted to work closely with students, like the person that had been my mentor. So actually during my final year of graduate school, I worked at a place called Framingham State College as a residence hall director, living in a residence hall of 300 undergraduate students and kind of running that hall. And it was a good experience, kind of rounding out my graduate experience. But then I was offered an opportunity to go to the University of South Carolina to be the assistant to the dean of students there. And that's really where I see myself launching my student affairs career, which was the early mid part of my time in higher education, which I loved.
And for people who may not really see or understand the differences in the roles at the university level or the college level, talk to me a little bit about the difference between being a professor or working with students every day and being more of a dean or being in administration.
Right. I mean, the role that I moved into at that point had to do with all the out-of-the-classroom activities that our students are involved in, you know, clubs, organizations, leadership, athletics, you name it, all the ways you kind of expand their horizons, as well as all the ways you support them in their in-class activity. And I was involved in teaching a little bit when I was at the University of South Carolina, but most of it was, you know, trying to figure out how to help students in all their out-of-the-classrooms activities and help them be successful.
When you kind of go into a career like this, do you realize early on that most likely you will have to move around a lot? Of course, that had been the norm for you.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't odd for me. It was odd for my wife, who had grown up in the same place her entire life till she went out to California. But for me, it's especially early in my career, I assumed I'd be moving a fair amount. So we went from Boston to South Carolina, and then the woman I was working for at South Carolina became the vice president for student affairs at Lehigh. You know, I convinced her to take the job, and she came up here and said, "Help! I need you." So
And that's how you ended up in the Lehigh Valley. Wow. Okay. Interesting. And what was your impression when you got here? And what did you think of the Lehigh Valley? You've been to a lot of places, so your impression matters.
Right. I mean, I think from the very beginning, we loved the Lehigh Valley. I love proximity to New York. I'm a huge theater guy. I love going to theater. And the area. We like the area. But, there were some rough parts of the area then. The South Side was not nearly as vibrant as it
where we sit today, and
today.
You can't believe what's around us. It's
The
amazing.
transformation's been incredible. But I think from day one, we loved the Lehigh Valley. We loved the people. We loved kind of what was going on here. But it has grown exponentially and in ways that I think make it a lot more interesting place, not only for us, but for, one of my children has actually moved back to the Lehigh Valley.
Now, were your children primarily raised in the Lehigh Valley?
Oh, absolutely.
At that time, okay. So this
they were both born at St. Luke's, and they grew up in the Lehigh Valley. We moved in the Lehigh Valley 4 times in 2 different houses because we were here initially 22 years before we went away for 7 years and then came back.
Right. Yes. And was it always in your plan to come back? I mean, was that always your hope that this would be a place you'd spent 22 years here, or was it just something fortuitous?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that we had specifically planned that we would always come back, but we certainly had a huge spot in our hearts for the Lehigh Valley. So it was fortuitous in that with Art Scott's retirement, and when I learned about that, the timing for us was perfect. We were ready to make a move. We'd been out in Ohio for 7 years in a small town, great college, but ready to kind of move back to a bigger, more interesting place. And so this opened up, and boom, it was a perfect next step.
So Northampton Community College, I find to be one of the most dynamic, interesting, thriving colleges. And
Yes, and yes.
It is. And I'm from New Jersey, and we have lovely community colleges. I just don't know that it has the same vibe as here. And I know that community college is taking on a totally different, meaning these days. So what do you want people to know about NCC and kind of the opportunities that it offers people in our region? And you have students of all ages. In fact, we just had Carol Obando-Durstein in here, and she was talking about how she just has audited classes there, and just because she wants to learn something.
Right. Well, it's an incredible place. I mean, part of what drew me to the place is that I actually think the most important work in higher education today is happening at places like ours. Add to that the fact that this is a place, and I give a lot of credit to my predecessors, Art Scott, Bob Kopacek, before me, that has a great culture, but also a vision around innovation and continually moving forward.
Yeah, and you've got this amazing center now, right on the south side of innovation, and it's amazing. There's a lot of assets, I guess, I'm not sure if that's the right term, that you have that I guess I wouldn't traditionally associate with a community college. Is that an accurate statement?
Oh, I think absolutely accurate. Well, a couple things I would say. First of all, we're a college of the community, and that means we're changing all the time depending upon the needs of the community we serve. When PPL said they needed line workers, up went the polls, we're training line workers. When the hospitals say we need a new category of healthcare worker, boom, new program. And
you're able to do that and implement that really quickly, correct? Like it's not quite I don't want to say disparage, but you don't have the same red tape maybe?
Well, having been a liberal arts college president for 7 years and now a community college president there, it would take me about 2.5 years to get a new program up and running fully. Here it takes about 6 months to do the same thing.
Which is pretty quick, though. You can respond to the needs of the community really quickly.
Quick, I think in real time. So, and Northampton, I think, is unusual where our students are really engaged at the college. Part of that is that there's a longstanding culture of engagement on the campus. The other part is we have residence halls. We have 600 students that live on our campus. So we have students from 48 countries, 25 states, 53 counties, which is different than
and you're really
strategically
strategically located. I mean, it's certainly easy to get to from a lot of places and convenient. You have an amazing culinary program. I've been fortunate enough to be on the Lehigh Valley Food and Wine Festival Committee, which benefits the Northampton Community College Foundation for a number of years now, and not only serve on the committee, but also be a part of the event itself. I think it is a world-class culinary program. I mean, this is like sending a kid to France to study culinary arts. Has that become a cornerstone for you? Has it become, what does it mean to the college to have that program?
Well, certainly it's one of our strong programs, very strong program. And I think, the relationship that we have now with Wind Creek and Emerald Lagasse and the connections that come out of that, I think have only served to strengthen the program. And we're constantly pushing the envelope, trying to make the program better. So without a doubt, you see students of all ages and from all over that come to that program.
What do you think that you've learned in your tenure across the various places that you've worked that you've brought to the community college atmosphere, and what has it taught you?
Well, I will say without a doubt, of all the places I've worked, this is the place that grabs me right here. I'm grabbing my chest and my heart because the impact we have is enormous. Not that the Lehighs and the Wittenbergs and the South Carolinas of the world don't have an impact, but at the end of the day, the difference we make in the lives of our students is life-transforming.
And really then the difference they're able to make in the community are so big.
40% of our students tell us, if you didn't exist, I can't go to college. And we're a big college. We have 13,000 credit students and 15,000 non-credit. So 28,000 individuals come through the college. 44% of them are students of color. Youngest is 13, oldest is 92. It's an incredibly diverse place, which is part of the magic.
I love it. And you've got one of the hidden gems of the Lehigh Valley, Hampton Wynn's restaurant.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that you have a restaurant on campus that is open to the public.
Yep.
What's the purpose of that place?
Well, it's really a hands-on learning laboratory for our students in the culinary program. So they get a chance to see not just the back of the house and they make the food, but they see the front of the house because they also serve the food. So they understand from beginning and end to end what is it like to be in the food service industry, which is a challenging but exciting industry.
It's so nice that they have an actual place. It's sort of, I always think it's like going to get a haircut at a beauty academy. You get to test it out. They get to test it out. It's a cool idea.
Right. And the food, it's gourmet food. When it comes and they sit in front of you, wow, it looks beautiful. You almost don't want to eat it.
It is great. It is really great. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I do want to talk a little bit more about your commitment to this community and all the things you love in the Lehigh Valley. So we'll be right back with Mark Erickson.
Thanks.
Any time of year, the Lehigh Valley is an exceptional place for food, drink, and entertainment. Whether you're cooling off from the summer heat at Dutch Springs or shopping for just the right kind of gift at Chris Kindle Market, you will make memories all year round. For more information on what the Lehigh Valley has to offer, check out Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. Hey guys, welcome back to Unscripted. I am here with my friend Mark Erickson from Northampton Community College, and he's been telling us about his amazing background traveling around the world, his career in education, but really you found your home. Your heart is for this amazing Northampton Community College.
Well, and I really wish I'd found Northampton earlier. Although, for 10 of the years when we lived in the Lehigh Valley, Lynn, my wife, worked at Northampton. So I knew the amazing work, but it's different to actually be there day to day. I'm so fortunate to know these students, know them as well as I do, and see what they do. We have unbelievable students. We have a student who just graduated. He went through a period of, homelessness. He's now off to Columbia University. He's, just whoosh, his life has totally changed. But there are lots of those stories.
Lots of stories
just
like
that. And our students have a sense of thankfulness. They don't have a sense of entitlement, yet they can go anywhere. We're sending an increasing number of our students on to Lehigh.
You also have a strong sense of community. I think that not only community at the school, but giving back to the larger Lehigh Valley community. Is that something that's near and dear to your heart? Is that important to you?
I would say hugely important, and really in two ways. One, we're a college of the community, which also means we're preparing the workforce for this community, so that piece is important. I'm actually the chair of a group called the Education Talent Supply Council, which brings together the leaders of our educational institutions along with the leaders of our business community, making sure that what we're doing and what we're pushing out into the workplace is what the businesses really need in terms of the types of graduates, the type of curriculum we're preparing them for, all those sorts of things. The other side of it is I think it's incredibly important that we prepare our students to be committed, engaged citizens in their community. So we have a Center for Civic and Community Engagement on our campus, which is all about helping our students make those connections, doing volunteer work, working with the census, understanding how government works, and becoming involved while they're students so that they'll continue that for the rest of their lives.
Well, you and Lynn are so engaged in the community, and in your two roles at NCC and at Da Vinci, of course, you're out and about around town all the time. But if you're not wearing a work hat and you two are just looking for a nice night out, or you're going to take your family out somewhere, where do you go? What's your favorite thing to do in the Lehigh Valley?
Oh, gosh. We probably have a list. As I mentioned before, I love music, theater, all those things grab us. We have a wonderful summer theater program and regular theater program at Northampton, which if people haven't come, they really should. It's as good as parts of what you see on Broadway. And we bring in equity actors from Broadway in the summer, as well as students from around the country out of colleges. So for tonight, like for instance, tonight we're heading over to the State Theater. We do that. We go to Arts Quest. We go into New York with some regularity. We love the restaurants in the Lehigh Valley.
What's your favorite place? You have a couple
favorites?
Probably
our longtime favorite has been the Apollo Grill, just because for decades we've gone to the Apollo Grill. So when our kids come home, my daughter in San Antonio, she'll say, I want to go to the Apollo Grill tonight, just because it's got that great vibe and good food, and so. But we're all over the valley. One of the great things that we've seen happen here is just the growth of great restaurants. We were out at Bolete the other night, and they're just restaurants here that I'd put up against anywhere.
I fully agree with you, and culture too. We have great arts and culture and music, and it's just right in our backyard. Great.
It's fun. It's fun.
Well, and isn't it kind of neat to know that a lot of the people that work in these restaurants are the students that you grew right at Northampton Community College?
Oh, absolutely. When we go into a restaurant, it's not unusual that a couple of the folks in the kitchen, whether or not it's the chef or server, come up and say, "Oh, President Erickson, you're here tonight," and then they treat you so well. But it's just great to see their energy and their excitement. And
I don't know how many college presidents actually get to see their students out and living and pursuing their dreams and experience it on a regular basis the way you get to. So I think that's got to be incredible.
Oh, it's great. It's what gets me up every day. No question about it. I am totally blessed to be working at a place that makes such a difference with a group of students that are phenomenal and a faculty that I'd put up against the faculty anywhere. One of the things, and I'll push this out there just because our faculty is terrific, 4 times in the last decade, or the Professor of the Year in the state of Pennsylvania has come out of our college.
Wow, so that is an amazing accomplishment. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. We've learned so much from you here today, and we encourage people to take advantage of everything that Northampton Community College has to offer. And just thank you for being here.
We have 113 programs to study.
That's a lot, and I really didn't know you had over 20,000 students. That's incredible, really incredible. Great.
And there's a place for everyone. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mark. Family time is about creating memories together to last a lifetime. And what better way to bond than spending time at some of the amazing attractions the Lehigh Valley has to offer? You can cheer on the Lehigh Valley Phantoms or take a walk on the wild side at the Lehigh Valley Zoo. However you enjoy spending your free time, there's something here for every member of the family. For more information on things to do in the Lehigh Valley, head over to Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. All right, I'm here with Dr. Mark Erickson. He is the president of Northampton Community College, and we're going to do our rapid fire questions. Dr. Erickson, can I confirm that you have not seen these questions?
I have seen no questions.
And you look a little nervous.
Just a little.
All right, here we go. You ready? What is your favorite hobby?
I love going to New York City and seeing shows.
That's a good one. All right, if you won the lottery, what's the first thing you would do?
Oh, wow. These are tough questions. Lightning round. I'm not quick enough for lightning round. My wife and I have often talked about, at the point when we retire, we want to be engaged in some sort of meaningful work internationally. I'd probably put aside X amount of those dollars to figure out what that is.
Well, in that case, I really hope you win the lottery. Right. That's a good use for it. All right, what's one food you couldn't live without?
What would that one food be? I probably eat more salmon than anything else.
You're the second person to say salmon. Can you believe that?
Because
people love
I do.
salmon.
Yeah.
All right. What actor would you cast to play you in a movie about your life?
Oh, jeez. That's an impossible question.
Harrison Ford.
Isn't that? No. I have no idea. I
Harrison
honestly
Ford.
Harrison
Easy.
Ford, do you think?
Yeah. If you didn't
Now the good news, my wife has a crush on Harrison Ford, so that's probably
I just figured out the
probably a good
puzzle for
thing.
you. If you didn't have the job you have now, what would you be doing instead?
If I wasn't doing this, I think I'd probably be working somewhere in education. I might be working as a teacher. I mean, my time as an 8th grade and high school teacher, I love that too. I love being in the classroom. I love the energy that comes with that. So,
Name one person who inspires you.
can I name 2?
You can.
Okay. I mean, one would be my wife. I mean, you know Lynn. Nobody works harder or is more optimistic about life than Lynn. So she inspires me. The other one is this mentor that I talked about from college. He was this person who, when you were with him, it felt like you were the only person in the world, and he really drew out of me the best of me, and then help push me in directions that I never would have imagined on my own.
What a gift to have those 2 people in your life.
Huge.
So thank you for joining us for our rapid fire questions, Dr. Mark Erickson.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, until next time.